Jake Morrison's eyes snapped open to the sound of screaming alarms. His body felt like ice, and every breath sent sharp pain through his lungs. The cryopod's lid had cracked open, letting in air so cold he could see his breath in thick white clouds. Something was very wrong. He tried to move, but his muscles refused to work properly. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, Jake managed to roll out of the pod and onto the metal floor. The cold bit through his thin medical suit like knives. The hibernation bay stretched out before him, filled with thousands of white cryopods. Most of them glowed with soft blue lights, showing that people were still sleeping inside. But too many pods were dark and cold. Jake's heart sank as he realized what that meant. Dead. So many dead. Jake forced himself to stand up, his legs shaking badly. He had been the captain of the colony ship New Dawn, carrying 10,000 people to a new world called Kepler 442b. They were supposed to sleep for 40 years while the ship flew through space. But the emergency alarms told him something had gone terribly wrong. He stumbled toward the nearest control panel, his bare feet sticking to the frozen metal floor with each step. The screen was cracked and flickering, but he could still read the basic information. Mission time: 100 years, 7 months, 12 days. Jake stared at the numbers, not believing what he saw. 100 years. They had been asleep for 100 years, not 40. Where were they? Where was their new home? A voice called out from across the bay. Captain? Captain Morrison? Jake turned and saw a woman crawling out of another pod about 50 feet away. She was shaking from the cold just like him, her dark hair covered with frost. Lisa, he called back. Lisa Kane? Yes, sir. Lisa Kane had been their best engineer. If anyone could figure out what happened to their ship, it would be her. The heating system is dead, Captain. Has been for years by the look of it. More voices echoed through the bay as other people began waking up. Jake counted them as they appeared. 1, 2, 3. Eventually 12 people total. 12 people out of 10,000. Dr. Sam Rodriguez stumbled over to Jake, his medical bag somehow still hanging from his shoulder. Captain, we need to get somewhere warmer fast. Our body temperature is dropping too quickly. Jake nodded. Lisa, do you know where we can find heat? Lisa was already looking at a wall display, her fingers moving slowly over the frozen controls. The engine room might still have some warmth. The reactor should be running on minimum power. The group of 12 survivors helped each other walk through the corridors of their ship. Jake had walked these halls many times before they went into cryosleep, but now they looked like a frozen tomb. Ice covered everything. Their breath came out in white puffs that turned into tiny ice crystals before hitting the walls. Amy Thompson, their communications officer, walked beside Jake. Captain, I tried the radio systems. Most of them are dead, but I'm getting some signals from deep space. We're not where we're supposed to be. What do you mean? We're completely off course. The navigation system shows we missed our target by thousands of light years. We've been drifting through empty space for decades. Ryan Walsh, their security chief, spoke up from behind them. How are we even alive? The ship should have enough power and supplies for maybe 50 years, not 100. Lisa answered while they walked. The ship's AI must have shut down all non-essential systems to save power. It probably turned off the heating to keep life support running for the cryopods. They reached the engine room and felt the blessed warmth immediately. It wasn't comfortable, but it was warm enough to stop their shivering. The massive fusion reactor hummed quietly in the center of the room, surrounded by pipes and cables covered in ice. Jake found a working control station and called up the ship's status reports. What he read made his stomach turn cold. The AI system is damaged, he announced to the group. It's been trying to keep as many people alive as possible. But the cryopods have been failing one by one. We've lost over 7,000 people. Helen Brooks, who had been in charge of growing food for the colony, sat down heavily on a crate. What about the others? The ones still sleeping? Dr. Rodriguez was checking another display. The remaining pods are failing too. We might have a few months, maybe a year before they all shut down. The room fell silent except for the humming of the reactor. Jake looked at each of his people. They were all good people who had signed up to build a new life on a distant world. Instead, they were trapped on a frozen ship, drifting through empty space with no way to reach any planet. Amy suddenly looked up from a communication panel she had been working on. Captain, you need to see this. Jake walked over to her station. On the screen was a display showing objects in nearby space. One object was moving toward them. What is it? Jake asked. It's a ship, sir. But it's not human. The design is completely different from anything we ever built. Amy's voice was quiet. It's about 6 hours away from us. Ryan moved closer to the screen. Could be pirates or slavers. We should assume they're hostile. Lisa shook her head. Or they could be our only hope. We can't fix this ship with 12 people. We need help. Jake studied the image of the approaching vessel. It was sleek and curved, like nothing human engineers had ever designed. After sleeping for 100 years and waking up to find most of their people dead, they were about to meet the first alien life forms in human history. Amy, can you send them a signal? I can try, Captain. But we don't know their language. Send them math, universal constants. Show them we're intelligent. As Amy worked on the message, Jake looked around at his small crew. 12 people alone on a dying ship, about to make first contact with an alien species. They had no weapons, no leverage, and no way home. But they had something else. They had 3,000 people still sleeping in those failing cryopods, people depending on them to find a way to save them. Jake made a decision that would change everything for humanity. We're not running, he told his crew. Whatever happens, we protect our people. The alien ship arrived exactly when Amy predicted. Jake and his crew watched through the observation windows as it approached the new dawn. The vessel was beautiful in a way that human ships never were. Instead of the hard angles and metal plates of human design, this ship curved and flowed like it had been grown instead of built. It's docking with us, Lisa reported from her engineering station. Their technology is incredible. They're matching our airlock perfectly without even asking for our specifications. Jake felt his heart pounding. In all of human history, no one had ever met an alien before. He was about to be the first. Ryan, I want you and 2 others armed and ready, but keep your weapons hidden. We don't want to start a war. The airlock cycled through its sequence, and then the door opened. What stepped through was nothing like the aliens in old Earth movies. The beings were tall and thin, with skin that seemed to shift colors like oil on water. They moved with a grace that made them seem to float rather than walk. The lead alien made a sound that was like music mixed with wind chimes. Somehow, Jake understood that it was trying to communicate. Amy stepped forward with a translation device she had quickly put together. I'm trying to match their sound patterns to mathematical concepts, she whispered to Jake. After several minutes of back-and-forth sounds, Amy's device began to work. The alien's musical language started to come through as words. We greet the frozen builders, the translation said in a mechanical voice. You have traveled far in cold sleep. Jake stepped forward slowly. We are humans. Our ship has been damaged. Many of our people are dying. The alien's colors shifted to deeper blues and purples. We are Zephyrians. We explore the void, seeking knowledge. Your ship interests us. More Zephyrians came through the airlock. They carried devices that looked more like art pieces than tools. One of them approached Dr. Rodriguez and made gentle sounds. Through the translator, they learned it was asking about human biology. They want to help our people, Dr. Rodriguez told Jake after a long conversation with the alien medic. But there's a problem. They say we're in dangerous space. The lead Zephyrian, who had introduced itself with a name that sounded like singing wind, explained the situation. The translation came through slowly but clearly. You drift in territory of the hegemony. They are warriors who destroy all strange life. They will come when they detect your ship. Amy worked with the Zephyrian communication expert to improve the translation system. Soon they could have real conversations. How long do we have? Jake asked. Perhaps days. Perhaps weeks? The hegemony patrols this region, but space is vast. However, your ship's signals will eventually reach them. Lisa had been talking with the Zephyrian engineers about the new dawn's problems. Captain, they say they can help us repair some systems, but our main problem can't be fixed. We don't have enough fuel to reach any safe planet. The Zephyrian leader's colors shifted to what Jake was learning meant sadness. We can take your 12 people to its safety. Our ship has room. What about the others? The 3,000 still in cryopods? Impossible. Our ship cannot carry so many. The transfer would take too long. The hegemony will arrive before we finish, Jake. Felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. Save 12 people and let 3,000 die, or stay and let everyone die when the hegemony arrived. Dr. Rodriguez came over with incredible news that made the choice even harder. Captain, I've been studying our medical data from the cryopods. Something amazing happened during our 100 years of cold sleep. What do you mean? Our bodies adapted. Look at these readings. We can survive in much colder temperatures than normal humans. Our blood carries oxygen more efficiently. We need less food and water. The cold environment changed us. Lisa looked up from where she was working with alien technology. That's not all, Captain. I've been learning about their science. Humans are unique. Most species in the galaxy develop either technology or biology, but not both. We're the only ones they know who build machines and adapt our bodies at the same time. The Zephyrian leader heard this through the translator, and its colors shifted to bright golds and whites. This is true. You are most unusual in our travels, and we have never seen such adaptation. Helen Brooks had been working in the ship's agricultural section with a Zephyrian scientist. She came back with her own shocking discovery. The plants, Captain. During the 100 years, some of our food crops mutated in the cold. I've got new species that can grow in almost any environment. The Zephyrians say these could change how their people colonize new worlds. Jake realized they had stumbled onto something bigger than just their survival. Humanity wasn't just another species asking for help. They had something unique to offer. Amy received a message on the long-range communications. Captain, I'm picking up more signals. There are other Zephyrian ships in nearby systems. And something else. I think there are other species too. The galaxy is full of intelligent life. The Zephyrian leader approached. Jake, we must decide quickly. Our sensors show hegemony ships beginning to move in this direction. Ryan had been quiet during most of the discussions, but now he spoke up. Captain, I've been talking with the security team. We all agree. We're not leaving our people. Lisa nodded. The engineers feel the same way. Dr. Rodriguez smiled. The medical team is staying too. One by one, each member of Jake's crew made the same choice. They would not abandon the 3,000 sleeping humans, even if it meant their own death. The Zephyrian leader's colors shifted through patterns that the translator couldn't interpret. Finally, it spoke. We have never seen this behavior. Most species choose survival of the few over death of all. You choose different. Jake looked at the alien. That's what makes us human. The Zephyrian was quiet for a long moment. Then its colors became bright silver. Then we will help you fight. The next few days changed everything aboard the New Dawn. The Zephyrians worked alongside Jake's crew, sharing technology and knowledge that seemed like magic. But Jake knew it wasn't magic. It was science so advanced that humans hadn't dreamed of it yet. Lisa Kane had become the bridge between human engineering and Zephyrian technology. She stood in what used to be the ship's main agricultural dome, now surrounded by alien devices and human machinery working together. Captain, look at this, she called out as Jake entered the dome. The Zephyrians showed me how to turn our water recycling system into a weapon. All this ice throughout the ship can be launched at incredible speeds. The dome had been transformed. Where rows of vegetables once grew, now stood makeshift weapon systems. The Zephyrians had helped them convert the agricultural equipment into mass drivers that could fire chunks of ice like bullets. How much damage can ice do? Jake asked. A Zephyrian engineer answered through the improved translator. At insufficient velocity, ice becomes destructive as metal. Your ship has thousands of tons available. Ryan. Walsh was working with 3 Zephyrians in the security section, learning about weapons and tactics. Captain, they've been telling me about the hegemony. These aren't just soldiers. They're fanatics who believe any species that's different must be destroyed. Jake studied the tactical displays the aliens had set up. What are we facing? Probably 7 or 8 warships, each one designed for destroying entire planets. Ryan paused. But the Zephyrians say the hegemony has never fought humans before. They don't know what we can do. Dr. Rodriguez had made a breakthrough that excited everyone. Working with Zephyrian medical technology, he had figured out how to safely wake up more colonists from their failing cryopods. I can bring back maybe 30 or 40 people, he told Jake. But I have to choose carefully. Their bodies have been damaged by the cold. I need to pick people who are still strong enough to help. Do it. Wake up anyone with military or engineering experience first. Amy Thompson had been working non-stop with Zephyrian communication experts. They had managed to boost the New Dawn's signal strength enough to send messages across several star systems. Captain, I've been broadcasting our story to every ship and planet within range, Amy reported. I'm telling them that humans are here, we're in trouble, and we're not giving up. Any responses? Dozens. Most species have never heard of humans before, but they're interested. Some are even offering to help, but they're too far away to reach us in time. Helen Brooks had been working with the most unusual Zephyrian of all, one whose colors constantly shifted between green and gold. This alien was a biologist fascinated by how human plants had adapted during the long cold journey. Captain, you need to see this, Helen said, leading Jake to a small growing area she had set up. These tomatoes grew in near-freezing conditions. This corn can survive in almost pure carbon dioxide. The Zephyrians say these plants could terraform dead worlds. The alien biologist spoke through the translator. Your species brings life, where others bring only technology. This is gift beyond price. As the days passed, more colonists began to wake up. Tony Blake had been a Marine sergeant back on Earth. Carol Martinez was an aerospace engineer who had designed parts of the New Dawn. Each person who woke up brought new skills and ideas to their desperate situation. Tony took charge of organizing the awakened colonists into teams. Captain, we've got 43 people awake now. That's not much for fighting a war, but it's enough to make the enemy think twice. Carol worked with Lisa to understand the ship's systems better than ever before. The mining lasers we brought for the colony can be modified into weapons. They won't punch through military armor, but they'll hurt. Jake walked through the ship and saw his people working alongside the Zephyrians, humans and aliens, sharing knowledge and preparing for battle together. It was everything humanity had dreamed of when they first looked at the stars, except for the part about fighting for their lives. The Zephyrian leader found Jake in his old captain's quarters, which were still freezing cold despite the heaters they had set up. Your people are remarkable, it said. We have traveled far and met many species. None fight as you do. What do you mean? Most species fight for territory or resources. Some fight for glory. You fight for people you have never met. You risk death for strangers. Jake thought about the 3,000 people still sleeping in their pods. Most of them he had never spoken to. They were farmers, teachers, artists, and ordinary people who just wanted a new life on a distant world. They're not strangers, Jake said. They're human. Amy's voice came over the communication system. Captain, you need to get to the bridge immediately. Jake ran through the corridors, now warm enough that people could work without freezing. The bridge had been transformed with Zephyrian technology. Screens showed space around them in ways human instruments never could. Long-range sensors are picking up ships, Amy reported. 7 of them, moving in formation toward us. Lisa checked her engineering displays. All weapon systems are ready. The ice launchers are loaded. Mining lasers are charged. Tony Blake's voice came from the security station. All personnel are at battle stations, Captain. Jake looked around his bridge. Humans and Zephyrians worked side by side at every station. 43 humans and 12 aliens preparing to face an enemy that destroyed entire worlds. The Zephyrian leader stood beside Jake's captain chair. The hegemony expects to find easy prey. They have never seen humans fight. On the main screen, the enemy ships appeared as tiny dots of light still hours away, but they were coming, and there was nowhere for the New Dawn to run. Jake opened a communication channel to the entire ship. This is Captain Morrison. In a few hours, we're going to face an enemy that wants to destroy us simply because we're different. They think we're weak because our ship is damaged and we're outnumbered. He paused, looking at the faces of his crew on the bridge. They're wrong. We're human. We don't abandon our own. We don't surrender when the fight gets hard. And today we're going to show this galaxy what that means. The ship's speakers carried cheers from every section, humans and Zephyrians alike ready to fight together. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin. The hegemony fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel exactly where Amy had predicted. 7 massive warships, each one larger than the New Dawn, arranged in a perfect attack formation. Jake watched them on the main screen from his position on the bridge. The enemy ships were black and angular, designed to look frightening. They succeeded. They're scanning us, Amy reported from her communication station. I think they're trying to figure out what species we are. Lisa monitored the engineering systems. All weapons are ready, Captain. The ice launchers have enough ammunition for hours of fighting. Mining lasers are at full charge. The Zephyrian leader stood beside Jake's captain chair, its colors shifting to deep reds and oranges. Through the translator it said, "The hegemony will demand surrender first, they enjoy fear." As if summoned by those words, the communication system activated. A harsh voice filled the bridge, speaking in a language that sounded like grinding metal. The Zephyrian translator worked. Quickly, unknown vessel, you have violated hegemony space. Prepare for boarding and destruction. Resistance will increase your suffering. Jake activated the response channel. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human colony ship New Dawn. We are peaceful travelers who got lost. We mean no harm to anyone. The response came back immediately. Humans. Unknown species. Contamination. Unacceptable. Prepare for cleansing. One of the hegemony ships fired a warning shot that passed close to the New Dawn's hull. The message was clear. Jake looked around his bridge. Humans and Zephyrians worked together at every station, their faces calm despite the overwhelming odds. These people had already chosen to risk everything rather than abandon their sleeping colonists. All stations, this is the captain, Jake announced. The hegemony has refused our peaceful offer. They want to destroy us because we're different. That ends now. He turned to Lisa. Fire everything we have. The New Dawn erupted in light and violence. The converted mining lasers shot out brilliant beams of energy that struck the closest hegemony ship. The ice launchers fired chunks of frozen water at speeds that turned them into deadly projectiles. The hegemony fleet hadn't expected such immediate and fierce resistance. Their formations scattered as they tried to avoid the human weapons. Tony Blake's voice came over the intercom from the security section. Boarding parties are ready, Captain. If they want to come aboard, we'll give them a warm welcome. The battle became a dance of death in the cold void of space. The New Dawn was larger than any single enemy ship. But the 7 hegemony vessels had more advanced weapons and better armor. Carol Martinez had positioned herself in the engine room, monitoring the power systems that fed their weapons. Captain, the mining lasers are draining power faster than expected. We can keep firing for maybe 20 minutes before we have to shut down. Then we make those 20 minutes count, Jake replied. Dr. Rodriguez had set up a medical station near the bridge, ready to treat wounded crew members. But he had also made a discovery that changed everything. Captain, I've been analyzing the hegemony communication signals. There's something strange about their neural patterns. What do you mean? Their brains work differently than ours. They're connected to each other through some kind of biological network, but I think that network might be vulnerable to human electromagnetic patterns. Amy looked up from her station. You mean our brainwaves could disrupt their communications? Exactly. If Carol can boost the communication array's power output, we might be able to broadcast human neural patterns and confuse their coordination. Jake saw the opportunity immediately. Do it. Carol worked frantically in the engine room, rerouting power from non-essential systems to boost the communication array. Amy prepared to broadcast recordings of human brainwave patterns at maximum strength. The battle continued around them. The New Dawn took hit after hit from hegemony weapons, but the ship's massive size and thick hull kept them alive. Their ice launchers kept firing, and several enemy ships showed damage from the constant bombardment. Helen Brooks had done something no one expected. She had rigged the agricultural systems to release clouds of adapted earth plants into space around the ship. The microscopic seeds and spores created a field of biological interference that confused the hegemony sensors. "Broadcasting human neural patterns now," Amy announced. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The hegemony ships suddenly broke formation, their precise movements becoming erratic. Their weapons fire became wild and unfocused. "It's working," Lisa shouted from her engineering station. "They can't coordinate their attacks anymore." But the victory was temporary. The hegemony adapted quickly, switching to backup communication systems that weren't affected by human brainwaves. Ryan Walsh coordinated the ship's defenses as enemy boarding pods attached to the hull. "They're cutting through the outer airlock doors. We've got multiple breach points." Tony Blake led teams of awakened colonists to each breach point. The battles in the corridors were fierce but brief. The hegemony soldiers were used to fighting in normal temperatures, but the new dawn was still partially frozen. The cold slowed them down and gave the adapted humans a crucial advantage. "Corridor 7 is clear," Tony reported. "These aliens really don't like the cold." Jake realized they had found another weapon. He ordered all heating systems shut down except in essential areas. The ship became a frozen maze that favored the cold-adapted humans over their enemies. The space battle continued, but the new dawn was taking too much damage. Systems were failing throughout the ship and they were running out of power for their weapons. "Captain," Carol's voice came from the engine room. "I've got an idea. It's crazy, but it might work. Tell me." "We ram them. The new dawn is bigger and heavier than any of their ships. If we can get close enough to their command vessel, we can take it out." Lisa checked her displays. "The ship can handle one more major impact, but that's all. After that, we'll be dead in space." Jake looked at the tactical display. 3 hegemony ships were still fighting, but they were all damaged. If they could destroy the command ship, the others might retreat. "But what about our people?" Dr. Rodriguez asked. "The ones still in cryopods?" Amy had been working on something during the battle. "Captain, I've been in contact with Zephyrian ships in nearby systems. If we launch the cryopods in escape vehicles, they can pick them up. How many can we save?" "All of them, sir. But we have to launch them before we ram the enemy ship." Jake felt the weight of command like never before. Save the 3,000 sleeping colonists, but sacrifice his crew, or try to save everyone and risk losing them all. The Zephyrian leader spoke quietly. "Captain, this is your choice. We then will follow your decision." Jake looked around the bridge at his people, humans who had already chosen to risk their lives rather than abandon their sleeping friends, aliens who had decided to help them fight instead of fleeing to safety. He made the hardest decision of his life. Launch all cryopods. Set course for the hegemony command ship. All hands prepare for ramming speed. The new dawn turned toward the largest enemy vessel, its engines pushing the massive colony ship faster than it had ever moved before. Behind them, thousands of small escape pods streaked away into space, carrying the sleeping colonists toward safety. "This is for humanity," Jake said as the enemy ship grew larger on the screen. The collision lit up space like a new star. Amy Thompson woke up in a bed that was too soft and too warm. For a moment she thought she was back on Earth, but then she saw the walls that curved like living wood and glowed with their own light. Zephyrian architecture. "You are awake," said a familiar musical voice. The Zephyrian leader stood beside her bed, its colors showing the soft blues and greens that meant relief and joy. "How long?" Amy asked, her voice rough from disuse. 6 months since the battle. You were badly injured when your ship struck the hegemony vessel." Amy tried to sit up and felt pain throughout her body. "The others? My crew?" 8 humans survived. Captain Morrison died in the collision, but his sacrifice saved everyone else. Amy felt tears on her face. Jake Morrison had been a good captain and a better man. But she had to know more. "What about our people, the ones in the cryopods?" The Zephyrians' colors brightened to brilliant golds. "All 3,000 humans were recovered safely. They are awake now, living in a settlement we built together. Would you like to see them?" 2 days later, Amy stood on a balcony looking down at the first human city among the stars. New Geneva stretched out below her, a mix of human and Zephyrian architecture that somehow worked perfectly together. Gardens full of earth plants grew alongside alien trees. Children played in parks while their parents worked in buildings that seemed to grow from the ground itself. Lisa Kane found Amy on the balcony. The engineer looked healthy and happy, wearing clothes that seemed to be made from light itself. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Lisa said. "We're calling it New Geneva because Jake always said that was where humans and aliens would first learn to work together." Amy smiled. He was right. What happened to the hegemony after the battle? The Yar. Surviving ships retreated, but not before they broadcast everything that happened to their leaders. The story spread throughout their empire. A species they had never heard of had fought them to a standstill and destroyed their command ship. Lisa pointed to a section of the city where humans and several different alien species worked together on construction projects. The battle changed everything. Other species started standing up to the hegemony. Some of them even joined together to fight back. Dr. Rodriguez approached them, carrying a tablet full of medical data. "Amy, you need to see this. We've been studying the long-term effects of our time in the cold ship." Amy looked at the information on the screen. "What am I looking at?" "Human adaptation data. Our time on the New Dawn didn't just help us survive cold temperatures. We're stronger, we live longer, and we're more resistant to disease. The 100 years of hardship made us into something new." Ryan Walsh joined them, wearing the uniform of the New Geneva Security Force. "The Zephyrians say they've never seen anything like it. Most species either adapt biologically or technologically, but not both. We do both at the same time." Learned that the impact of their battle had spread far beyond just military matters. Helen Brooks had become famous throughout several star systems for her cold-adapted crops. Planets that had been considered impossible to settle were now growing food that could feed billions. "She's got teams of alien biologists working with her," Lisa explained. "They're creating new plants that can grow on worlds with no atmosphere, or in temperatures that would kill normal crops." Tony Blake had established the first human military unit in space, training both humans and aliens in the fighting techniques they had developed on the New Dawn. Carol Martinez led engineering teams that were building new types of ships, combining human durability with alien technology. But the biggest change was political. Amy learned that humanity had been offered full membership in the Zephyrian Federation, something that had never been offered to a species so quickly before. "Why?" Amy asked. The Zephyrian leader answered, "Because you showed qualities we had never seen. You chose to protect those who could not protect themselves. You fought not for conquest, but for compassion." Amy walked through the city and met people she remembered from the New Dawn. They were all different now, changed by their experience but still recognizably human. They had jobs, families, and hope for the future. In the center of the city stood a memorial made from metal, salvaged from the New Dawn. It listed the names of everyone who had died during their 100-year journey in the battle that followed. At the top was Captain Jake Morrison's name, with words in both human and Zephyrian languages. He chose courage over safety, sacrifice over survival. Amy found herself at the memorial every day, remembering her captain and the crew who had died to save people they had never met. But she also saw the results of their sacrifice in the bustling city around her. One evening, as she watched the sunset through the alien atmosphere, a young human girl approached her. The child couldn't have been more than 10 years old, one of the colonists who had been awakened after the battle. "Miss Thompson, my teacher says you were on the ship when it fought the bad aliens." Amy knelt down to talk to the girl at her level. "Yes, I was." "Were you scared?" Amy thought about that question. "Yes, I was scared. We all were." "Then why did you fight?" Amy looked around at the city full of humans and aliens working together, at the children playing in parks, at the bright future spreading out before them. "Because being scared doesn't mean you stop doing what's right," she told the girl. "And protecting people who can't protect themselves is always right." The girl smiled and ran back to her friends. Amy watched her go, thinking about how that child would grow up among the stars, accepted and welcomed by dozens of alien species because of what Jake Morrison and his crew had done. The New Dawn was gone, but its mission had been accomplished. Humanity had found its place among the stars not through conquest or superior technology, but through the simple act of refusing to abandon their own people. Years later, when Amy was an old woman serving as humanity's first ambassador to the Galactic Council, she would tell the story to representatives of hundreds of alien species. The story of a frozen ship full of desperate people who chose to fight rather than run, who turned their greatest weakness into their greatest strength, and who showed the galaxy that true strength comes from protecting others. The story always ended the same way. They could have escaped. They could have saved themselves and left their people to die. Instead, they showed the galaxy what it means to be human. And in the great libraries of a dozen worlds, the Battle of the New Dawn was recorded not as humanity's first military victory, but as the moment when the galaxy learned that there were beings who would die for strangers simply because it was the right thing to do. The colony ship had been lost for 100 years in the cold depths of space. But in the end, it had found something more valuable than any planet. It had found humanity's soul.